This one is gonna make some people mad.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a craze taking over the camping world. Heavy, bulky, and expensive rooftop tents are literally popping up everywhere.
Personally, I think rooftop tents have some major drawbacks, but I've never given them an honest chance. So today, that's what we're gonna do. Let's look at all the reasons why you should or shouldn't buy a rooftop tent.
But before we get into that, I need to talk about the Anker 300DC, who is sponsoring this portion of the video. No matter what kind of tent I'm using, when I'm out camping, power is my biggest need. I use a power station like the 300DC to power everything from iPhones and tablets, lighting around camp, my portable fridge, and even my homemade portable sink.
Most power stations are the size of a car battery, making them difficult to carry around, but the 300DC is about half that, coming in about 30% smaller than the industry average, yet it still has enough power to get me through a long weekend.
It features 300 watts, 90,000 milliamp hours worth of charging, has 7 charging ports including 2 USB-A ports, 4 USB-C including one 140 watt 3.1 amp fast charging port, and a 12 volt car socket. Now I mentioned I use it to power lights around camp, including my skylight and the string lights on my tent, but it also has its own pop-up light that has come in really handy when I'm trying to see to plug in my other lights. The best part about this power station is the introductory price of $199.99, but right now you can get it for $169.99, which, when you think about it, a 10,000 milliamp hour power bank still costs about a third of that. You get 9 times the ability to charge for only 3 times the price.
Learn more about the 300DC through the links in the description. Now, back to rooftop tents. Okay, so let's talk about some of the reasons why you might want a rooftop tent, with the biggest, most obvious reason first, getting up off the ground.
Now, why would you want to be up off the ground? Well, there are a couple reasons. The ground is where animals, bugs, and dirt come from. By using a rooftop tent that is up off the ground, you minimize the chances that some sort of wild animal is going to mess with or try to get in your tent. Now, it's not going to eliminate your chances because any determined animal will still be able to get up to the tent, but it will make it harder, and for some people, that is enough.
A more realistic reason for wanting to get up off the ground is not having to deal with rocks and sticks and other obstacles that might interfere with pitching a more traditional tent.
But being off the ground can be a con too, because that means you have to get up and down from the tent anytime you get in or out of it. Need to set it up? Climb the ladder. Need to get something out of the tent? Climb the ladder. Got to pee in the middle of the night? Hope you don't mind navigating a ladder in the dark.
A question I really want to know, and I would love to hear from you in the comments, is how important is getting up off the ground? Because other than that, there aren't that many more pros.
Now, this particular rooftop tent is from Free Spirit Recreation. I bought and paid for this tent myself, but Free Spirit did give me a discount. And I want to say this is a really nice tent. It's got blackout material to keep the sun from waking you up early. The walls are slightly insulated to help keep out the cold. It's got a vent for a diesel heater. It's got string lights inside and more. But every single one of those pros are also available from more traditional tents. Blackout insulation, heater vents, lights, those are not rooftop tent specific features. The one thing I think rooftop tents do benefit from is they can be heavy, incorporating all these weighty features without it affecting you much. But what about one of the nicest features of this and most rooftop tents? How quickly it can set up.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick timed test to see how long it takes me to set up the traditional tent versus the rooftop tent.
So it did take me about 10 minutes to set up this large 6-person tent, whereas the rooftop tent only took about 2 minutes to set up.
Okay, that was pretty fast.
I admit it's nice, but once again, it's not rooftop tent specific. There are more traditional tents that set up just as fast, which means the only real benefit that is unique to rooftop tents is getting up off the ground. And even that can be done with a hammock tent, and you can do it for a fraction of the price.
Because this tent, brand new, costs a whopping $3,295, which, the best I can tell, is pretty typical of rooftop tents. Now, you can get some cheaper rooftop tents for around $800, but that's still at the top end of most traditional tents.
And that's not the only money these tents are going to cost you.
So I want to see just how much gas this thing is drinking. So I reset the gas mileage stats in my 4Runner. I'm going to drive around for about an hour, come back, take the tent off the top of the car, and then I'm going to drive the exact same route again and see what the difference is. Okay, 16.6 miles per gallon with the rooftop tent on the car, 18.6 miles per gallon with it off. That's almost 2 extra miles per gallon just by not having the rooftop tent on top of the car.
So let's say you don't want your tent drinking all that expensive gas in between camping trips. Taking on and off the tent is a two-man job that takes about 30 minutes to an hour to remove or install. Then you have to store it in either your garage or somewhere else, and it's big and bulky. Not convenient at all, especially if you're trying to run out for a quick weekend camping trip. But let's assume you don't care about any of that. Price doesn't matter, you don't mind storing it or keeping it on the roof. It's still not a very convenient tent.
Okay, so we set up camp last night, and today we've got a short drive to a hike we want to do, which means we're going to have to completely break down and pack up this tent. Now, luckily, we've got a more traditional tent setup, which is going to mark our claim on this campsite. Without that, we'd have to leave some chairs or something else in hopes that when we get back, our campsite wouldn't be taken by somebody else.
Leaving camp means that once I get back, I'm going to have to go through all the trouble of leveling the vehicle again, which means using rocks or leveling blocks to try to get the vehicle leveled out so that I can sleep well tonight.
Now, I will admit that leveling the vehicle like this is possible where leveling a tent is not, so I guess that's one point for the rooftop tent, but where I can park a car is much more limited than where I can pitch a tent.
I can't tell you how many times I've stayed at developed campgrounds where the car has to be parked several dozen feet from the campsite. If I had a more traditional tent, I could set up right where camp is as opposed to up where the road is.
Not only that, but I've got my wife and two of my kids with me. Not only will this tent not fit my whole family, but I need to have rooftop storage just to get everything we need to and from camp.
Now this tent has the option to add a roof rack on the top of the tent, but that means before I can set up the tent, everything has to come out. And once the tent is popped up, the rooftop storage is basically worthless.
For all those reasons and more, I just don't understand the appeal of a rooftop tent. It's like it wants to be a pop-up camper that can go anywhere, but even then, I feel like traditional tents still offer a lot of benefits. But maybe I'm off the mark. If I am, let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and do all those other things. And as always, thanks for watching. Okay, I just thought of another benefit. You don't really have to deflate your air mattress. I guess that's one more score for the rooftop tent.